Thank you very much, Ian, for the introduction. Thank you to all the speakers. It was very insightful to hear your presentation, and good afternoon to all of you. And to begin with, indeed, we discovered today with all the speeches that there is a huge opportunity for the industry advancement with the adoption of EPD and LCA in the HVAC industry, which brings us in a shift from a single phase mindset and approach to an approach in which we look, whether we are talking about the project or we're talking about the single product, to an approach where we look at all the phases that involve that project or that product. As it said, from cradle to grave, so from the origin of the source material to the production and manufacturing of the product, to the maintenance and installation and maintenance, and eventually the recycling of the product. I believe that the first dimension in which really this change occurs is the mind, because without a mindset shift, the value that LCA and EPDs can bring, it's hard to catch. But as soon as we get into the mindset where the accountability of products have to take into account all those phases, then there are also a lot of things that open up. We start to understand that the capital expenditure, for example, that we think it will be impacted negatively if we invest in an LCA or EPD process, in reality gives us insights to how be profitable even better in the long term. So that is actually very interesting to discover when we study EPD and LCA. So a mindset shifts is the first step. Of course, through that, the strategical thinking of the projects will be impacted. The narrative of what is success really changes. And now success is seen not anymore in the single point of time, but in the long term. So that we can have projects that can be more predictable, more replicable, and easier to manage on the long term as well. Why then, given all these points, we really have to use and may use LCA and EPD methodologies in the building industry or the HVAC industry? And there is a study from the Science Direct that gives us some interesting element about it and tells us that for buildings that have plus 25 years of lifespan, over 75% up to 80% of the costs are related to operation and maintenance. And the underlying issue with that are that often the information between the parts involved and the stakeholders involved is fragmented, is not accurate, and it's hard to manage it in one go. This, of course, as you can imagine, create increased costs, but can also lead to safety issue. So that brings a question to me. Are we really having, with a change of methodology, solving the problem? And I believe that while LCA and EPD is implemented in the building industry can foster industry advancement, there is an underlying problem that has to be taken into account, and it really belongs to both approaches. And I heard from Stanislava that the input can be good as the output. It's very true. Or how it's important from Eric, for example, to make the data available in the environment that they are the very own environments of the various stakeholders. And so for me, the point is that we have the same challenge of a single phase project, the same challenge to solve and the same need, which is data that can be trusted and available at the right place and at the right time. That's really the bottom line. For that, we cannot cover in 10 minutes how to make a data strategy, of course, but what I can do for you is to provide you a map that for us works very well in our context and is yet simple but very powerful. And it's based in 4 pillars, which are standardization, third-party verifications, metadata traceability, and quality-gated API. So if you work as a HVAC manufacturer, but really as a stakeholder in general, whether you're a designer, architect, a building association, if you want to make sure that your data is quality data, first of all, you need to embark on the standardization aspect. So in Europe, there are multiple standards that you can structure your data towards that. And by doing so, your data will be much easier to be read and understood by the various players in the industry. Another way is the third-party verification, of course, because this is a way for you to get your data validated by an entity that will prove that your performance are true. The metadata as well, the data behind the data, because if we have the same value in two units, but the context of a lab test was very different, then that data is not really easy to be used or to be relevant. And then the quality gated API, so the opportunity to really distribute the data harmonized according to all these aspects. How to do so? There is a new solution in the industry. By new, I mean around 10 years, which is BIM, that stands for Building Information Modeling, that really is an incubator that is possible to use to gather and collect all these informations. There is sometimes this misconception that the BIM is a 3D object. BIM is considered a seven-dimension object because you have, of course, the 3D aspect, the spatial dimensional elements, but then you have the fourth dimension of time, of the production of a unit, the fifth dimension of costs that can be also implemented live in the BIM, and then you have the performance data, for example, in the context of our company, Eurovent certification is what we deal with, and then you have the operation and maintenance data as well. So it's a lively unit, a lively digital unit that you can use to be present in the market and be compliant, of course. Here we have a map of the distribution of the BIM adoption, and we see that the Nordics are leading the way with the use of BIM. But as we may think that is not very advanced as an adoption in the rest of the world, the reality is not the case. We have different regions that are already in the phase of voluntary use of BIM, and other ones that have already mandates, which are the ones in yellow, to use BIM in their projects. So it's very much growing as a type of solution adopted. And the great thing of BIM is that it's also dynamic, and it's an incubator that will evolve depending on the new standard and new requirements that the industry will have. And one of those will be the DPP, the Digital Product Passports. So there is not a fixed nature in BIM. BIM becomes that box that serves multi-purpose and multipolar access to the different stakeholders. Today is the EPD or an LCA study that can be fed in a BIM. Tomorrow will be, for example, a digital product passport. In a recent study from EU BIM, which is a body of stakeholders in the building industry that came together, they use BIM and they analyze the market, it comes up that 89% of the companies that use BIM are companies that are very large. This is because there is an initial investment that is required to build your own BIM. 89% of the companies have over 250 employees. So that might suggest that if you are a small supplier, BIM is not something that you can access so easily. But in reality, we see already from next year that projects that are above 20 millions will have to use BIM. So very soon we will see also the implementation of subsidies and incentives to help as well the small manufacturers. And there is another aspect that is very important, which is that we are witnessing a new iteration of a technological change worldwide. Probably the last time we had one of this intensity was in the late 90s with internet that changed the world forever and completely. And now we have it with AI. So a lot of costs and time efforts that exist in creating BIM will be reduced drastically and very quickly with the use of AI. And that's how also the policy are going to move more and more, as we see already with the EU BIM insights that for projects above 20 million, there has to be BIM used from 2026. This is just a graph from Kambashi, a study that tells us the market USD billions, according to the growth that was measured from 2020 to 2025. predicts that the growth will be exponential. So it's definitely an area that you as a manufacturer should bring your attention on. Few studies, and I will go very quick here. I just wanted to bring some study case. Here we have 3 examples of projects that used LCA and also implemented the use of BIM. And this created a reduction in carbon emissions for a station in the UK of 14%, and for the City Hall of Bergen of 34%, and the University of Campus in Liverpool did a project in a retrofit analysis of the chillers that were used in the campus, and discovered that 35% of those chillers were underperforming. And thanks to this insight, they managed to change some of the units, which led afterwards to 18% of reduction in emission in the campus. So it's already an example of how the implementation of LCA assessments can bring solution in terms of carbon emissions, but also in saving time and cost. So all in all, I think the point and the closure for this today for me is that with the integration of the BIM technology and the EPD and the LCA methods, we can reach a better outcome, both from a sustainable standpoint, but also from a profit standpoint. It really is the meeting between technology and human collaboration. Data becomes the stewardship for that. So the more you will bring attention in making your data accurate and present, like I said before, at the right time and at the right place, the more you will be able to be transparent and trusted from your clients. This will inevitably bring you to scale, and with scaling and quality of products, inevitably you can reach your market excellence. So, thank you very much. That was for me.